Welcome to How to Not Be a Screw-Up, a blunt and honest discussion about how to change your life for the better. My name is Stephen Burns.
And I'm Brian Costello, and Steve and I have been working as coaches and therapists and trainers in the world of mental health for over 20 years.
So if you felt like your life is out of control and you don't know why you're doing the things that you do, then this is the podcast for you. So welcome to How to Not Be a Screw-Up, a blunt and honest discussion about how to change your life for the better. My name is Stephen Burns, and I'm here as always with my buddy Brian Costello. How are you today, Brian?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm looking forward to this topic. It's a very interesting one. We're going to do a list, people. Lists are exciting.
Well, people love a list, don't they? They love
the
the top 4 things, the top 5 things.
Yeah.
So we decided we're going to get in on the act.
Aye.
And we're going to share with you our top 4 tips on how to build a positive mindset in 2025 because let's be honest, or any year for that matter. I don't know why I said 2025.
It's only valid for this year.
Yep, exactly. Disappears. All of them completely vanish as soon as the bells go for New Year. But I think we do live in a strange time, don't we, Brian, where the world is a bit crazy. There's a lot of unpredictability, and we talked about that on a previous episode actually. And you know, we seem to be lurching from one big event to another, from pandemics to cost of living rises, wars breaking out, you know, the crazy culture wars that seem to be dividing us more and more. So with all of that going on, how is it possible to have a positive mindset? So what are your opening thoughts on it?
Yeah, now you put it like that. Actually, no, it's not.
Screwed.
Sorry, we're screwed.
Let's just finish this episode right now, and let's go to the pub, go for a few beers, and
absolutely,
commiserate and drown
yeah,
our
that's
sorrows.
it. Go and drink. No, right. Scrap all that. I'm only joking. I think, yeah, it can be very, very challenging. But like we've said actually in other episodes, I think there's a lot here where we're going to look at what's happening inside our heads. A lot of people think they can't have a positive mindset because of all the shit that's happening out there and all the bad stuff. And, you know, this is happening here and this war's happening here. And it's all horrible and it does affect us. You know, it changes things and it changes the way we look at stuff. And you can still have a positive mindset through all that. And I think it's about, as we're going to be covering, it's about how you manage your own mind and your own space. This is not about being not empathic or sympathetic to what's going on around the world. We're not saying just stick your fingers in your ears and just ignore everything that's going on, but it's possible to have both. It's possible to understand the realism, or the realism. It's possible to understand what's going on in the world and still feel positive about your own life.
Yeah, I think so. I think as well, for me, I think there's a lot of myths around positivity these days. I think some people think that positivity is about eradicating all negativity from your life, you know, cutting out all negative people.
It's a social media way, isn't it?
Exactly. You know, it's these kind of like, it's not a black and white distinction like that. It's not all or nothing. So many misconceptions. It's funny. So I'll tell you a story, right? So this happened. I'll make this reasonably brief, this story, because it could go on and on. So you know how like it's a kind of British thing to go on lads' holidays to Ibiza and Magaluf or Shagaloof, I was going to say. But,
right, okay. I was looking for someone else. I was looking for where else? Napa.
I was expecting you to finish my sentence there, but never mind.
I'm sorry, I was actually got to sit more in my head thinking, I never did a lad's holiday.
You never did a lad's holiday? Of course, you got married quite young, didn't you? And had kids and stuff like that. You did the very responsible thing. So
let's get that right. We had kids, then got married. That's where the lads' holidays went. Okay. We had them the wrong way around.
Understand. You should have taken them to Ibiza.
Aye, absolutely. They would have loved it.
Yeah. So when I was 25, so I was on a lads' holiday in Ibiza, and we were in this bar. So we'd been drinking most of the day and most of the night, as you do. It's a kind of rite of passage as a Scottish guy in his 20s. And all of a sudden, the bar staff basically stopped the music. And they announced that there was going to be this competition. So they were basically looking for 2 men to come up, strip from the waist up, and then get 2 women And the two women's jobs was to basically inflict mild to moderate pain on the men by whipping them with a belt. Honestly, this did happen.
Okay.
And the weird thing was they had so many guys volunteering for this. It was incredible. You know, all these macho guys. I do karate and I do stuff like this and I do tai chi. That'd be a weird thing to do. But yeah. So they picked these two guys. And this whole competition went on for, honestly, it went on
way
for
too
like
long.
45 minutes. And eventually this guy stood victorious. He won the competition, and I think he was in need of urgent medical attention because his collarbone was broken. There was blood everywhere. It was just horrendous. And the guy won a free night's alcohol as if he needed that. Well, I think he probably would have needed that
to numb the pain.
To numb the pain, exactly. And so after this, my mate turned round to me, and bear in mind we were both a little bit inebriated at the time, and he said, "Wow, isn't it amazing what you can do with a positive mental attitude?" I was like, "What?"
You just agreed to being tortured in public, but that's a positive mental attitude.
Exactly, yeah. So I think it can be a wee bit warped for some people where... So I think, I think understanding what positivity isn't about is quite useful. It's not about cutting out all negativity. It's not about just ignoring negativity. It's not about, getting whipped in a bar with while you're stripped from the waist up by a belt buckle. Definitely not about that. But for me, I think ultimately it's about being resourceful as a human being. I think as human beings, we are so much more resourceful than what we give ourselves credit for. The example I like to give is you mentioned you've obviously got kids. I mentioned it's like if you've got kids, then you'll do anything for your kids, won't you? You will literally walk over broken glass with bare feet for your kids.
I can arrange that if anybody ever wants a shot of that.
Well, you actually do that, of course, as well as fireworks.
Do that for fun,
various different things.
But I get what you mean.
You get what I mean. You could be a total spent force, but you'll find the energy to do something for your kids because it's so meaningful, it's so valuable. And I think as human beings, we have this incredible innate resourcefulness, and it's about recognising that. So it's not about being positive all the time. It's not about being happy all the time. It's not about cutting out all negativity. It's about tapping into our innate resourcefulness. But what we want to talk about is we want to share 4 tips, don't we? So we've got 2 tips each. Brian,
Absolutely.
Do you want to start off with tip number 1?
I'll kick us off. So listen to everything that Steve just said there, because I think social media especially has this thing where it's all about eradicate it, just be positive every day, wake up every day and be ready to face it, and we'll go and smash it. And actually having a positive mental attitude isn't always like that. And so therefore these tips that we're about to give come with a caveat that some days you are just going to wake up and feel a bit shitty, and that's okay. Having a positive mental attitude is about how you get over that and how you just keep on going, as Steve said, and using that example of what you do for your kids. You might not be feeling the best, but you still do it. And I would say that my first tip, not always the easiest thing to do, but again, like we said in other episodes of this podcast, it's quite often about choice, is to not sweat the small stuff. And I think it's one of these phrases that gets kicked about all the time, don't sweat the small stuff, but it's just so true. And I think we clog our minds up with so much crap where we're holding on to things or worrying about stuff that actually in the long run really isn't going to impact our lives. I watch, people frequently. There's I don't know if you've heard this. There's a new, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think I have got it. There's a new eating disorder called orthorexia. All right. And orthorexia is a compulsion to the point of irrationality about eating healthy and being well. So it's the opposite of what you might imagine, where people are so scared of taking in a bad thing, or eating or drinking something that they shouldn't, that actually it starts to run their lives and to a point where actually they're damaging themselves through this fear. And I think this is a classic example of of sweating the small stuff. It is exactly that, where you become so concerned with everything that you're either not doing or everything that you are doing that it starts to get in the way of actually living a happy life. It just becomes a complete obsession. This is a bit of a cheesy thing, and I know many people listening to this will have heard this before. This actually comes back to my previous career. There's a guy called Alfredo Pareto. and you might know Pareto. And he came up with a thing called the Pareto principle. And the Pareto principle you will have heard of as well. You've probably just not heard of it like that as well before. And Pareto realised that 80%, I think he lived in the 1700s or something like that. Pareto realised that 80% of Italy's wealth was held by 20% of its people. And it became known as the Pareto principle, and it's everything that we talk about this 80-20. And I think it's just such a good way to live your life, is to realise how many of the small things that you can actually just allow yourself to go, I'm not actually going to worry about that, which then leaves the energy, the emotional energy, the space inside your mind to then be much, much more positive about things. When you realise that it's okay to have a chocolate fudge cake at dessert as long as you're not having it every single night, when you realise that it's okay to have a glass of wine or go out and even have a great time and go out and do whatever you want at the weekend, as long as it's not all the time. And I think for many people, we've got into this place because of what you talked about with social media, where we're so... like it's so detailed, we're so granular in our detail of I must get everything right to live a happy life, that I think many people in this current generations that are social media, these social media guinea pigs, we're going to get to like 70 and go, why did I worry about all that? When, if I used my own family, my granddad lived to 88 years of age, taking 3 sugars in his tea and loving butter. Like, not any of this spreadable nonsense, real butter. And he lived to 88. And you can't argue with that.
Yeah, it's I guess it's everything in moderation except moderation in itself,
Absolutely.
isn't it? And it's true. It's funny. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about a guy I used to work with many, many years ago. And he was amazing. He would see when there was a crisis, if there was something really big, he was the coolest head you would ever see. He was the person that you went to because he just had this amazing ability to keep calm, to really focus and know exactly what the next steps should be. But see the small stuff, see if his kettle broke down, he would go absolutely mental. Like, or he stubbed his toe, and he would go nuts. Like, and it was just like, this is just bizarre, you know. And I guess this is this idea that you're talking about, isn't it? That we want to be focusing on the main things in our life, but to focus on the main things that give us pleasure, that give us joy, that really need our attention, we need to free up our mind and stop sweating all of the small stuff, because it's a heck of a lot of energy.
Well, how could you really enjoy a party if every time you know that you're worried about, oh my God, have I done the wrong thing or have I had this? And you just go and be yourself. I'm sure we'll do an episode actually on this. One we should note is to be yourself. How to be yourself. What does that actually mean? But yeah, when you just get rid of all that stuff.
No, I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it.
So what's tip number 2?
Tip number 2. So tip number 2 is learn from negativity. So I mentioned earlier on that for me, positivity is not about ignoring negative things from your life. It's not about cutting out all negative people or negative, things. I think it's important that you've got to learn from those negative experiences so that you don't stay there too often. It doesn't matter what your situation is. You could be a Buddhist monk who's spent the last 20 years studying the art of Zen. You're going to have tough times. You're going to have moments that you don't like, and you're going to be struggling through moments of adversity. So I think the key thing is not to avoid those moments, but to appreciate them and then to learn from them so that they don't necessarily happen again, so that you can actually not repeat the same mistakes over and over again. I don't know if have you seen Black Mirror?
This current series, I've only watched one.
You've only watched one, but you've watched the rest of the...
I've seen most of them.
Yeah, they're good for happy endings, Black Mirror. Not at all. It's just like, wow, it's like, I love it. I love it. So I love a dark programme with depressing endings.
Big twist. Nice twist.
That's my thing. Yeah, I love it. Something horrendous happens in the last frame. That's really good for me. But so there's an episode, I don't know if you remember, so it's called Archangel. So it's basically, you'll probably remember the premise when I describe it. So what they've done is they've developed this chip that they can put in your brain that censors out all negativity. So the whole idea is they want to use it to protect the kids. So kids will get this chip installed and they'll be walking down the street and someone will swear and it'll get bleeped out neurologically. Or if someone breaks a leg in front of them, that'll get kind of censored. It'll go all fuzzy so they can't see it. And that all sounds fine. That's an understandable, human impulse. It's understandable as parents. We want to protect our kids. But what happens is, over time, they eventually become super maladjusted because they've never experienced any kind of negative events in their life. So they've missed out on all of these really important learnings that we have to get from these difficult times, these moments of struggle. And I think I really like that as an analogy, because if you think about it, if you didn't have any bad things happen to you, what would you be like?
Aye.
You'd be a total wuss.
Oh, absolutely.
You'd be a total wuss.
All over the place.
You'd be all over the place. You wouldn't be able to do anything. So I think it really is important that it's not about avoiding these things. It's about learning from negative experiences, so that you can not repeat the same mistakes and potentially even become a better person. We actually talked about this in a previous episode, didn't we, Brian, when we talked about forgiveness. If you want to check that one out, it's very much about getting to the stage where it's not just about letting go of the hurt. It's actually about learning from it so that you can become a better person.
That's it.
So I think for me, anytime something bad happens, for me, I'll always take a few moments just to disconnect from it. I don't want to make any decisions in the here and now. I'll just take some breather. I'll disconnect from it. I'll go for a walk, or I'll go to the gym, or whatever you need to do to disconnect. And then after that, I'll ask myself, okay, what is there to learn here?
Yep.
What must I learn here so that I can move forward, so that this can actually be a good thing? So I think for me, tip number 2, it might seem a bit of a strange one, and that is to learn from negativity. Don't try and avoid it, but see if you can find the gems in there that can make you a better person.
You remember there was a trend for a few years. I think it's now gone, as far as I know, although my kids are now grown up, so I'm not exactly sure. But there was a thing for a wee while about that everybody got a medal. Remember, and everybody would be...
It's very controversial.
Nobody was first, and quite rightly. It was like this whole thing where it took away the negativity of losing, and that was a big part of the discussion in the psychological community, because I remember that wasn't long after I started doing this full time and it happening. And what do you learn from that? Because when you get out into the world, or even when they came up and these kids came up to do their exams, there is a pass and fail. There is a grading system. There is some people who are going to get A's, and there is some people who are going to do it. When you get out into the world of work, you're sometimes not going to get the job. And as you say, if you don't have the coping strategies for that, I suppose as I think about this, and I'm thinking about this live, when you're saying learn from negativity, when you think about it, that learning from negativity teaches you coping strategies to deal with that negativity. So maybe actually having a positive mindset is about having really good coping systems and coping strategies. But where do you learn them? As you said, you learn them from negativity.
Indeed, absolutely.
If you're enjoying this pod and you want more, then Steve and I have produced a special video series just for you. 6 lessons that you can sign up for right now for totally free.
So if you want to check that out, the link should pop up on the video just now. If you're listening on audio though, we'll include that link in the show notes if you want to check it out. So that's tip number 2. What is tip number 3? Over to you.
Tip number 3 even contains a mild swear word, which is sort your shit out, which is a shorthand way of saying that it's time to start to put down some of the baggage of the past. It's very difficult to have a positive mindset when all you're doing is dragging your past with you. Steve and I have an analogy that we both use about remember having bungee cords on your back, not bungee cords where you would do a jump, but the bungee cords where you would get to wear a Velcro suit and run and stick yourself onto a wall. And for many people, that's how they're living their lives, and they're looking for that positive mindset while all this crap is still living in their head that they've not dealt with. And it's very, very difficult to find space for positivity when actually what you're doing isn't really positivity. What you're doing is trying to ignore all the shit that you've come up with in your life. You're trying to bury your pain. You're trying to hide from your shame. You're trying to ignore your anger or your sadness or whatever it might be. And I know that Steve and I both work as therapists and as coaches. so we're kind of biased in this, but I am a therapist because of the effect that therapy and sorting my shit out had on my life. I mean, I do this job because the very first time I ever experienced this stuff, so the very first thing I ever experienced was this stuff called NLP, which you'll see referenced on the screen. Steve and I have mentioned it a couple of episodes. It's shorthand for Neuro-linguistic Programming. It's just an amazing, amazing tool for being able to understand your mind better. And when I first learned that, I had never experienced anything like that before. I thought I was quite a positive person, but actually I realised that what I had become an absolute master of was a master of dissociation. I was actually just not connected. It was all a mask, which is probably why away from that and away from as soon as I came out of the public eye, if you like, so as soon as I walked away from work, or, I was a trainer when I started learning all this stuff, so I'd stand up in front of big rooms of people, everybody said, that Brian, he's really funny, he's really positive, oh, he's a big smiler, he's a great guy. But actually behind the scenes, I was paranoid, I was anxious, I was smoking loads of weed to try and kind of just dampen all those feelings
Which
down.
is one of the best ways to stop being paranoid. It's clinically proven it's not, by the way, just to let you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, just if you missed Steve's
sarcasm,
disclaimer there,
sarcasm.
Yeah, it was very much sarcasm. So this is how how life was running. And then, as soon as I started actually sorting my shit out, all those things disappeared. And literally, like, I'd stopped smoking cigarettes within a year. I wasn't drinking as much alcohol. The weed took a couple of years to go away, but it was only about 2 years after that then that went away. In fact, I can't even remember. It may even been 2 years exactly. So very, very quickly, because that's the thing, 2 years is very, very quickly in the grand scheme of change. My life had absolutely transformed. I had a mission to go. I wanted to do this as a business. And I made space for the positive mindset. So sort your shit out. That is more than likely for many of us going to mean going and finding a therapist or a counsellor or something like that. I think we should be noting these down. Here's another future episode, which is, what is therapy or counselling like, and will it work for me, or something like that, because there's lots of myths around it. It's one of the most transformational things that you can do. So my tip number 3 for having a positive mindset is actually look backwards and get rid of all that stuff that's holding you back.
I think that's really good. And I think when you do sort your shit out like that, and you let go of issues that have been holding you back, your baggage, I think you naturally start to gravitate towards a more positive base, don't
Absolutely.
you? You wake up in the morning and you see opportunities, you feel much more positive about yourself, about your life. It's just naturally there. It's not like something you have to maintain. You still have to maintain it, of course, but it's not something you don't have to like shout positive affirmations in the mirror each day.
Exactly.
I am okay, I'm fine. You're just naturally in a much better place. It's like, I don't know if you've heard of the metaphor of the sun in the clouds. We've gone very Buddhist here.
Right,
we're going very
Buddhist.
Zen.
I love this.
Quite any Buddhism these days. And so it's basically the idea that the sun is always shining, right? So when it's a day with no clouds, you'll feel the sun shining really strongly. But when it's cloudy, you won't feel the sun's rays. And what we often say in a situation like that is the sun has gone away, the sun has disappeared. But actually the sun hasn't disappeared, it's just behind the clouds. So I think this is a really nice metaphor for our problems, because if you think your problems are a little bit like the clouds, and if you let go of your problems, the clouds start to part.
Love it.
And you begin to feel the rays of your positivity, of your resourcefulness, so much stronger.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why it's so important to do therapy, is because it will naturally return you to a much more positive base, similar to what you were like when you were a kid.
That's what I
when
was
you're a young
thinking.
kid, people you don't come out of your mum's womb and all of a sudden go, oh my God, I need therapy. It's like, it doesn't happen.
Oh no,
maybe,
am I annoying everybody?
Maybe in California, in America, maybe that's what they do. So if you're watching from California, I'm only joking, of course. But yeah, no, we naturally exist in that much more positive place. So I think that's a great one. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Excellent. Tip number 4, our final tip. If you're not already having a positive mindset, this is the one that's now going to...
You must be there.
This is the one that's going to tip you over.
The tip that's going to tip you over, is that right?
Yeah, it's a tip that's going to tip you.
I like that. Good stuff. So tip number 4 is to have positive expectations. So what's a positive expectation? So a positive expectation is where you imagine good things happening to you in the future. And the thing is, most people do the opposite, don't they? Where they have negative expectations. They engage in catastrophic thinking. Again, when I used to work in the oil and gas industry quite a number of years ago, was a friend of mine who I worked with. Lovely guy, Mike. You probably not be watching, Mike, but if you aren't, how are you doing? Good to see you. Anyway, so he was basically one of the most unlucky guys that I've ever seen, but he kind of brought his own luck on him. You know, it was like he was amazing at catastrophic thinking. You know, every silver lining had a cloud to Mike. He could find a way to turn it into something negative. Every positive had a downside. But the thing is, he almost like manifested that. He kind of invited it into his life.
I get you.
So what you want to do is you want to, if that's happening for you, you want to be aware of it and you want to flip it around. You want to have positive expectations instead. So you want to actively imagine good things happening to you in the future. And the difference that can make to your moods, to your general levels of positivity is absolutely incredible. There's a really good book, I don't know if you've read it, called The Luck Factor by a guy called Richard Wiseman. Really recommend it, it's fantastic. So he has a really cool idea where he says that luck is a psychological construct. So it's not just something that happens. It's actually, it has a set it's like a certain set of principles, easy for me to say. And if you do certain exercises, certain techniques, you can actually increase your level of luck. It's a great book, really, really, really cool idea. But one of the things he talks about in the book is he talks about this positive expectation thing. And he has a technique called dream wishing. So this is where if you have something that you want in your life, you can imagine what that would look like, what it would sound like, what it would feel like. Really think about it inside your imagination, step into it and really feel what that would be like if you had that thing in your life, and just loop that round over and over again. Just do it when you're making your coffee, or do it when you're making your dinner, or do it first thing in the morning if you want, or last thing at night. And eventually what happens is you start to invite those things into your life. Now, of course, from an NLP perspective, that's kind of similar to some of the techniques that we do, but
absolutely.
he actually even goes into the scientific research behind it as well. This guy used it to find a wife. He used it to find a decent job. And again, if you're into things like manifestation, you're probably thinking that's exactly what's going on here. But I do tend to think about things more scientifically. And I think by having positive expectations like that, you start to almost like focus in on those things in your life. You know, there's so much going on that it's very, very difficult to focus on the things that we actually want. And by dream wishing, by having these positive expectations, it can really help us narrow in and focus on the things that are really important to us. And we start to spot the opportunities that move us in that direction. So having positive expectations is really good. A kind of variation of that is where you just plan for good things to happen in your future as well. So you could call this the holiday technique. You know, it's like people, you know, when you book a holiday and it's like that
it's
last
something to look forward to.
Something to look forward to. It's that last week of work. There's a wee extra spring in your step. You're like, I feel fantastic. It's kind of like that. You know, if you plan for good things in your future, then that naturally raises your moods and enhances how positive you feel.
I love that. I think it's so true. I mean, expectations are obviously so important to us, but you know, as you were talking about that dream wishing thing, you know, I'm sitting there in my head going, I've got a big thing, you know, that a sort of a new thing that's launching hopefully later on this year. And it was meant to launch last year, and it didn't. And I've been doing a lot of work on it, and you know, if you want to follow a new social media page and you've got kids, then I run a thing called the Parent Coach, and it's meant to be this thing it's launching. But I've got to admit, because it didn't launch last year, it's felt a lot like hard work. And as you were talking about that there, I'm like, that's really interesting. Every time I think about the Parent Coach, I'm thinking about it being hard work. I'm enjoying it, but it's hard work, rather than running the expectation of, no, actually, that's going to be great. And I'm just as excited as I was last year. It kind of, I lost that spring in my step. I lost that holiday thing. So yeah, I think you've just taught me something. I need to start dream wishing. I'm going to dream wish the Parent Coach and start making it a lot more exciting and build my positive expectations up.
Sorry, the invoice is in the post. Perfect. Anyway, I just kind of reached over and said £500. Is that all right for that piece of advice?
Just email me it. You know, that's it. My life is transformed.
I think that's absolutely worth it. So any final thoughts on positive? That sounded very sinister. Final thoughts on positivity before we finish off this episode?
I think that the main thing is, just to summarise, is that what we've talked about here is leaving space for your positive thinking. And everything that we're talking about, yes, expectations is a wee bit more active, but everything we're talking about here is that, I love Steve's metaphor or analogy there about, when we're a kid, no baby is born coming out going like, I'm doing everybody's head in. I mean, are they generally positive? You might not think that if you're a parent of a young baby who's currently screaming its head off and you're not getting any sleep. But it's about returning to a place where you're letting something out rather than having to go and find something that you have to install. We are naturally positive. We just need to make space for it.
Definitely. I think it's like that famous Marianne Williamson quote, where she says, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure.
Yep.
And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that gets a bit religious that we tend to cut out.
I love that quote.
But it's a super cheesy quote. It's very hackneyed. It's very Instagrammy, if you like. But I think it's cheesy and hackneyed for a reason, because I think it happens to be true. So I totally echo what you said there. When you let go of your baggage, you return to that much more positive place. You can put so much more out in the world. But there are some other techniques, some other tips that we've talked about that can add some extra layers to that too. I think that's pretty much us for this episode. This could be, we could go on and on with this. I've got we've got extra tips as well on positivity.
We'll
Maybe
do
there's
another list.
Positivity part 2. The return.
I like it. Strikes back.
Indeed.
Fantastic.
So thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are watching on YouTube, if you could like and subscribe and pop a comment below and let us know what you think.
If you're listening to us on audio, then please follow us. And also, if you can, please give us a 5-star review and tell us how much you've enjoyed it, because it really helps us reach more people.